Well, it's me. Good morning and welcome back. After taking a couple of days off, today is Tuesday, February 22nd, 2022, and I am Kenny Polcari, your host of the party, and here's what you need to know about what the markets are doing today and what happened over the weekend that's going to dictate where we go from here. So finally, Vlad did it, right? And he did it on President's Day, no less, right? He started to make his move into the eastern parts of the Ukraine. Joey and other world leaders crying foul ball. Manny making it very clear that diplomacy is still on the table. And Vlad sent his peacekeepers into the eastern Ukraine, suggesting there's another move. Oil trading up 4% this morning. And what are we having for dinner? Well, we're really having a drink, and it's called the Moscow Mule, and you'll understand that when we get to it. But look at that. I just take a couple of days off, and everything goes to hell in a handbasket, right? I mean, from when I left last Tuesday to where I am today, the last time you and I spoke was 1 week ago when the S&P was trading at 44.71. The NASDAQ was at 14,139. By Friday evening last week, in front of a long weekend, the S&P had ended the day at 43.48, down 2.7% from earlier in the week. The NASDAQ closed at 13,548, down 4.1%. The Dow ended the day at 34,079, down 0.6. The Russell was at down 0.9. The Dow Transports was down 0.2%. The talk all week and all day by the administration was that Russia was on the verge of invading Ukraine, and comments like at any moment and imminent and without a doubt, all sending stocks lower as the tension in the room got thicker and thicker and thicker. Algo's going into sell mode as the indexes have all now pierced their long-term trendline supports, setting us up for a retest of the January 24th lows, something that I've been talking about since we made those lows. Over the long weekend, Vlad did as he promised, right? After holding the world hostage to the unfolding crisis in Ukraine, he made his first move. Yesterday, late in the afternoon, after the Olympic closing ceremonies were nothing but a distant memory, and Vlad got himself extra short the market, he took to the airwaves and announced that he was recognizing two self-proclaimed separatist republics in eastern Ukraine, two regions that have been fighting for independence from Ukraine since 2014, all with Russian support. And why do I say that? Well, because Vlad had been telling the world since 2014 that he wasn't involved, he wasn't instigating, nor was he supporting them. And then suddenly yesterday he decided that he must recognize their request to be independent. And now part of the Russian Empire, because who's kidding who? And after he did so, he then ordered his peacekeeping forces to go into those breakaway regions to help restore the peace. At the same time, he demanded that the Ukrainian government stop all military action in the area immediately, or they will bear full responsibility for what would happen next. Because those two regions, in Vlad's eyes, are no longer Ukrainian territory, right? So any military action by the Ukrainians is now an assault on Moscow, really, right? You can see how this is going, right? And he set it up perfectly, but this isn't necessarily a surprise. And this leaves Joey and Manny, the French president, right, and Olaf, the German chancellor, and Mario, the Italian prime minister, and others having to decide what to do next. All I can say is, how happy is Angie Merkel right about now, right? Immediately, there were cries of foul play, and Macron calls it a violation of all the commitments. Boris Johnson set to impose sanctions upon Russia this morning. Joey plans to stop U.S. trade and those two separatist regions. I don't really think that's going to hurt much. And the EU is set to meet and discuss sanctions in response to Vlad's decree. The ultimate issue for the EU is that any sanctions would have to be unanimously adopted by the entire bloc. So how do you think that's going to work out, right? I guess we're going to have to watch and see. All I can say is expect energy and food prices across Europe to skyrocket in the weeks ahead if Vlad continues to push. EU chiefs Ursula von der Leyen and Charlie Michael calling this a blatant violation of the Minsk Accords or Minsk Agreements. Now, the Minsk Agreements were signed on September 5th, 2014, forcing Russia to recognize and accept the fact that these two very regions belong to the Ukraine, no matter that they were attempting to secede. So yesterday's decree clearly violates this agreement signed 8 years ago. And that's what's kind of causing all this initial angst. U.S. markets, while we were closed yesterday due to the President's Day holidays, didn't allow investors at all to have a chance to participate in the latest news until today. Last night when the news broke, U.S. futures plunged, right? And they were lower this morning as investors prepare for what is expected to be a volatile time. Now, they were lower this morning at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock this morning. They were still down. Dow was down 400. The S&Ps were down 80, right? Now, don't look at this. Now, you can't be looking at any U.S. economic data or earnings data to drive the market this week. Global market activity is going to be driven by the latest geopolitical events unfolding across the world stage. No one is paying attention to the economic activity today. And while there will be some Fed speak, investors have already priced that move in, right? They've even priced in my mind. The market has already potentially priced in a 50 basis point move, so that I don't suspect is going to send the markets lower. In fact, at some point, it might be seen as a positive with the Fed trying to shock the system and take control back of the narrative, but we'll see how that goes. As expected, overnight, Asian markets opened and traded lower, all closing down between 1% and 2.5%. This on top of the losses that they've also suffered recently. Curiously, though, Xi Jinping has been mum on all the action, waiting to see how the world responds as he contemplates taking Taiwan. Now, taking Taiwan now, while Vlad is trying to take Ukraine, will create an even bigger global geopolitical crisis, and that would send stocks reeling. Vlad's bullying will appear like nothing more than a pimple on Gigi's backside, right? If in fact Gigi moves ahead to take on Taiwan, which I think people really have to consider. European stocks had started the day in negative territory. At 5 o'clock this morning, markets across the region were down between 0.5% and 1.2%. But by 6:30, those markets had all moved into positive territory, right? Did a complete turnaround. The UK was up 0.4%. The CAC 40 was up 0.2. The DAX was up 1/10. Eurostock was up 0.3%. Spain was up 0.4, and Italy was up 1/10. Olaf Scholz, German chancellor, has now ordered the halt for approval of Nord Stream 2, the Russian energy pipeline that travels from Russia beneath the Black Sea into Germany. Now, this is a bold move because it's going to directly impact energy prices across Europe. So let's see what Vlad does now, and let's see what the other European nations are going to do. U.S. futures, like I said, which had plunged lower last night, have stabilized this morning, but it's early, right? When I was writing this, the sun hadn't risen yet. When I looked out the window, it was still dark. Dow futures, which were down 450 points or 1.4% last night, are now only off by 70 points, or 0.2%. The S&P was off 75, or 1.7%. It was now only down 9 points. The NASDAQ got absolutely slammed, falling 350 points or 2.5%, is now only off by 90 points. And the Russell, which shaved 36 points off, is now only down 4 points, or was. Now, why should futures be rallying on the back of last night's news after all the kind of drama? Well, there's a couple of reasons, right? One is that the skirmish in the eastern parts of Ukraine has been going on for 8 years now. Pro-Russian troublemakers supported by Moscow have been fighting Ukrainian forces since 2014. Thousands have already died. So the fact now that Vlad wants to recognize their fight and recognize their independence is not surprising. And I'm not downplaying any of that. I'm just laying it out. And two, many are still believing that there is a diplomatic solution, but it must include a way for everybody to save face. Vlad must feel like he got noticed. Europe must feel like they weren't bullied. NATO needs to back off. Ukraine can remain independent for now. Don't ever think Vlad's going to let that one go. Now remember, I've been saying I don't think this is going to turn out to be an invasion right now at all. In the end, I think it gets resolved diplomatically, all while Vlad goes from being short the market to being long, right? He needs to cover his shorts and go long before he's really going to announce, any pullback. But I do think they're going to take it right to the edge, and then the Germans and the French are going to come up, and there's going to be a solution. The VIX, which is the fear index, shot higher by 13%. At 3180 this morning was now trading up about 6% at 2955. The VIXI, which is the ProShares short-term ETF, was up 28% since last week and is going higher today unless the market starts to take off, and then it'll back off. The triple leveraged S&P short SPXX, which was up 2% on Friday, was quoted up another 50 cents or 3% this morning, but is now flat. The other ETFs, non-leveraged shorts, also moved up on Friday, the DOG, the PSQ, and the SH. And if the tone this morning remains muted, then I would expect them to back off as well. The value trade SPYV was down 0.4% on Friday, while the growth trade was off 1 full percent. Consumer staples was the only sector up 0.2%, while healthcare, real estate, consumer discretionary, and tech all led the way lower. This morning, oil is surging on the back of this latest Russian move. WTI is now trading up 4.4% or $4 a barrel at $95 a barrel, after really trading as high as $96 overnight. Forget any fundamental analysis right now. It's not relevant. Oil will move up to $100 a barrel as Russia continues to move, and if Russia continues to move. And that's good for Russia as well as OPEC. Because remember how Russia and OPEC were choking on oil when it was trading in the mid-30s during the prior administration. So anything Vlad can do to push oil up and reap the benefits is what he will do. It is funny, though, how the Biden's energy policy has crippled the U.S. oil industry, leaving Joey to beg OPEC and Russia to pump even more oil to help bring prices down. Well, how's that working? I don't really think it's working too well. On a side note, the American Association of Individual Investors, AAII, has really flipped, right? There's a sentiment index. Bears are at 43%, while the bulls are coming in at 19%, which means what? It means that we're going to get a strong snapback rally at some point. Maybe today, maybe not. Why? Because when bearish sentiment gets this out of whack, it becomes a contraindicator. But you need to pay attention to the noise to help figure out when that contrary opinion is about to happen. Again, the geopolitical noise will cloud the action until we get more clarity. And while there is some economic data due out today, the most important on a normal day would be manufacturing PMI, services PMI, the Richmond Fed. But as I said, I don't expect anyone is going to be paying much attention to those data points today because they're going to be much more focused on what's going on in the geopolitical sphere, right? Cryptos continue to get hammered. Bitcoin falling from $42,000 last Tuesday to $37,000 this morning. That's a 14% decline in 1 week, right? The question is, will it test 30,000, where it needs to find support? A failure there could see Bitcoin trade down to 10,000 before it finds any real support at all. The surge in 2020 from 10,000 to 40,000 was swift, and the retreat back to 30 was equally swift. The move from 30 to 60 then, while exciting, saw it retest 30,000 just in a few months. Then the move back from 30 to 70,000 happened over 6 months in 2021, and now it's sliced 47% of that value in just 4 months, leaving us kind of somewhere in the Netherlands, right? As it struggles to find stability. 30,000 is a key level. I'm just saying, keep your eyes on that. Ethereum is down 10% over the last week, trading at 2550 this morning. 2300 is key for Ethereum. A failure there could see Ethereum trade down to about 1500, where it should find real support. The S&P closed on Friday at 4348, down 32 points, leaving us ready to retest the January 24th lows of 4222 or thereabouts. That's a 2.8% move lower from here, which would leave the S&P just on the cusp of an official correction defined by down 10%. We've been talking about this, so now it's happening. No one should be surprised. If you're a long-term only investor, now is the time for patience. Wait for a bit more clarity before you commit more money. If you play from both sides, then just make sure you're watching your short hedges because the tone can change quickly. And we just saw that happen overnight, right? I mean, if you got up at 4 o'clock this morning, you would have thought the world was ending. And by 9 o'clock, it was fairly stable. Remember, you're always going to stick to the plan. You can feel free to call me to discuss because I'm always happy to talk about it. Okay, so what are we serving for dinner? This isn't really dinner. This is a drink, right? It's called the Moscow Mule. Now, look, I could have given you a white, black, or red Russian. I could have given you those. But a mule, which is also defined as an ass, gabish, rhymes with bass. So the Moscow Mule, I thought, was much more appropriate. And so this is simple to make. You need vodka, ginger beer, lime juice, and ice cubes, right? You need a copper mug to make this in, because the copper mug actually holds the cold better for this particular drink. So in the mug, you want to add the ice. 2 block cubes would be perfect. Stack them one on top of the other. You're going to add in a 1/4 cup of vodka, 1 tablespoon of lime juice, and a 1/2 cup of ginger beer. You can garnish it with a slice of lime, or you could put a fresh mint sprig in there if you want. Just stir, let it get nice and cold, and serve it, right? You can have it any time of the year, but I think for today, it makes perfect sense that I'm going to give you the Moscow Mule. In any event, we'll see you tomorrow. It looks like a beautiful day here. You can see a little bit cloudy, which might suggest how the markets might react today, but we're going to hold on, all right? Take good care.